The observation deck of the Galactic Military Academy fell silent as Lieutenant Cara Dune entered the combat simulation arena. Behind her, 4 Valkorian war cubs padded softly, their crystalline fur shimmering under the artificial lights. Each cub stood nearly 4 feet tall at the shoulder, their 6 eyes tracking every movement in the room with predatory precision. Instructor Varick's mandibles clicked in disbelief. The Xanthari officer had overseen tactical training for 3 decades across 17 species, but he had never witnessed this. Valkorian war cubs were apex predators from a death world, creatures that had resisted domestication for millennia. They bonded with their own kind, hunted in packs, and killed anything that threatened their territory. They certainly didn't follow human cadets into training facilities. Lieutenant Dune, Varick's translator, rendered his clicking speech into flat, emotionless words. Protocol dictates that all simulation participants enter unarmed and unaccompanied. You have violated both regulations. Cara turned to face him, her expression calm. The cubs settled around her feet, forming a protective semicircle. Their presence was impossible to ignore. The temperature in the room seemed to drop, and several alien cadets unconsciously stepped backward. With respect, instructor, I am unarmed, Cara replied. And they're not companions or weapons. They're not even tamed. Then explain their presence, Lieutenant. Varick's 3 eyes narrowed. Valkorian cubs do not leave their hunting grounds. They do not tolerate other species. The Valkorian Empire has tried for centuries to weaponize them and failed. Yet you walk into my facility with 4 of them at your heels as if they were domesticated canines. A murmur rippled through the assembled cadets, representatives from dozens of species, each curious about the human who had somehow achieved the impossible. Cara knelt down, placing her hand on the nearest cub's head. Its fur felt like cool glass beneath her palm, and she could feel the thrumming energy that pulsed through its body. The cub leaned into her touch, and a low, harmonic sound emanated from its chest, not quite a purr, not quite a growl. They chose me, she said simply. Varick descended from his observation platform, his chitinous legs clicking against the metal floor. That is not an explanation, Lieutenant. It is mysticism. The Galactic Military Academy deals in facts, strategy, and documented xenobiology. They chose me as insufficient. Cara stood, meeting the instructor's gaze. Around them, the other cadets watched in fascination. This was more than a simple disciplinary matter. It was a challenge to everything the galactic community understood about one of the most dangerous species in known space. 3 months ago, my patrol ship crashed on Valkoria Prime, Cara began. We lost all but emergency power, and our distress beacon was damaged. Standard protocol said to stay with the ship and wait for rescue, but my crew was dying. The medical bay was offline, and we had wounded who needed immediate help. She gestured to the cubs, who watched the instructor with unblinking eyes. I went looking for medicinal plants in the nearby forest. That's where I found them. Not these 4 specifically, but their pack. 30 Valkorian adults and a dozen cubs surrounding a fresh kill. Varick's antennae twitched. You should have died. I should have, Cara agreed. I had a broken arm and a malfunctioning sidearm. By every tactical assessment, I was prey. But I didn't run. I didn't threaten them. I simply sat down. You sat down, Varick repeated, his tone suggesting this was the most foolish thing he had ever heard. I sat down, Cara confirmed, and I waited. The adults circled me for hours. They could smell the blood from my wounds. They knew I was vulnerable, but I didn't show fear. I didn't show aggression. I showed respect. One of the cubs, the largest with silver-tipped fur, moved closer to Cara, pressing its massive head against her leg. She scratched behind its auditory ridge, and the harmonic sound intensified. Humans have a long history with apex predators, Cara continued. Thousands of years ago, our ancestors did the same thing with wolves. They didn't conquer them. They didn't enslave them. They found common ground. They recognized each other as hunters, as survivors, as beings worthy of respect. The Valkorian Empire attempted similar tactics, Varick countered. They used pheromones, neural implants, genetic conditioning. All failed, because they tried to control, Cara said. They tried to dominate. Humans learned long ago that the strongest bonds aren't built on control. They're built on choice. She looked down at the 4 cubs, each one an apex predator in its own right. After that first night, I returned to my ship. The next morning, these 4 were waiting outside. They didn't attack. They didn't threaten. They simply stayed. When rescue came, they followed me to the transport. When I was transferred here, they came too. Not because I commanded them, not because I tamed them, because they decided I was worth following. Varric was silent for a long moment. Around the arena, the other cadets whispered among themselves. A human had done what entire civilizations could not, formed a voluntary bond with one of the galaxy's most feared species. You understand, Varric finally said, that this changes everything. If humans can bond with Valkorian war cubs, if these creatures will fight alongside your kind willingly, then humanity brings something to the Galactic Military Alliance that technology can't replicate. Kara finished. We bring the ability to turn enemies into allies. Not through force, but through respect. The largest cub rose to its feet, its 6 eyes fixed on Instructor Varric. The Zenthari officer tensed, but Kara placed a calming hand on the creature's shoulder. They're not weapons, she said firmly. They're not tools. They're partners. And if the galaxy wants to learn what humanity has to offer, it starts with understanding that simple truth. The strongest warriors are those who choose to fight beside you. Varric's mandibles clicked in what might have been approval. Very well, Lieutenant Dune, you and your partners may proceed with the simulation. Let us see what a human and 4 Valkorian war cubs can accomplish when they work together. As Kara walked toward the simulation chamber, the cubs moving in perfect synchronization around her, she smiled. The galaxy was full of species that had conquered, dominated, and controlled. But humanity had always understood something different. The most powerful bonds weren't forged in chains, they were chosen freely. And that made all the difference.